Did you know that 71% of the people that watch Matthew Kelly's videos are not subscribers? That makes no sense. We need to change that. Subscribe today. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications so you never miss out on another great video ever again.
When it comes to the spiritual life, God does all the heavy lifting. That doesn't mean it's easy. It isn't. Prayer is one of the most difficult things we can do in this life. It's difficult mostly because it requires us to face ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not easy, but it is incredibly rewarding. Most things that are worth doing in this life are not easy, but the difficult things are often the most rewarding things. As we make this journey, there are going to be things that are asked of us. There are going to be challenges. We are going to feel overwhelmed at times. When we feel overwhelmed in life, when we feel overwhelmed in the spiritual life, very often it's because we're trying to do something that it's God's job to do. We're called to surrender. We're called to let go. We're called to allow God to work in us. If we take a quick review of the 6 seismic shifts, the first, begin the conversation. Just begin the conversation. Is it easy? No. Is it simple? Yes. The second, ask God what He wants. Ask God what He wants. The third, give yourself to prayer. The fourth, transform everything into prayer. The fifth, make yourself available. And the 6th seismic shift, just keep showing up. And so it is clear that God wants to do all the heavy lifting. So what's our job? Our job is to show up. Our job is to be open to whatever God is calling us to do, to be, and to become. Our job's to make ourselves available, to cooperate. Because what God wants with you and with me is, He wants a dynamic collaboration. He wants to collaborate with you. If you look at the history of humanity, if you look at the history of God's relationship with humanity, it's a history of great collaborations. Look at anybody who has played a significant role in the history of God's relationship with humanity. They've collaborated with God. They've cooperated with God. They've made themselves available to God. And in many cases, they fell out of that. They stopped collaborating. They stopped cooperating. They stopped showing up. They stopped making themselves available. And that's when things started to fall apart. And we see that in a lot of epic figures who played massive roles in the scriptures and massive roles in the relationship between God and humanity. When you think about the spiritual life and when you think about the 6 seismic shifts, they don't happen at any specific times in our lives. They don't happen in any specific order. They certainly don't happen in a straight line. In fact, a fairly good rule of thumb, I think, is to realize there are no straight lines in the spiritual life. There are no straight lines in the spiritual life. God is not a big fan of straight lines. As humans, we love straight lines. As humans, we're obsessed with straight lines. If you look at creation, God's creation, there's no straight lines. God doesn't use straight lines. If you look at man's creation, everything we've added to God's creation, straight lines everywhere. We're obsessed with straight lines. God doesn't work with straight lines. There are no straight lines in the spiritual life. And I think it's a really important lesson for us to learn, because there will be progress and there will be regression. There will be times when we know we are making great progress, and there will be times when we feel stalled or we feel like we're regressing. But in all of that, God is working. God is doing the heavy lifting. God wants to do the heavy lifting, but He wants us to cooperate with Him. He wants us to collaborate with Him. And that is perhaps one of the most difficult lessons in the spiritual journey.